Welcome to Cut the Nets, episode 3. I'm Jeremy. This is Brian. Brian, this is a long hiatus. It's been about 3 weeks since our last episode. We didn't have this intentionally planned. We weren't going to go off for 3 weeks. But of course, Christmas break happened. We have family. We've got New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and into the new year. So it's January 4th as we're recording this. So we're going to get back on the schedule and kind of kickstart the new year and be consistent with this. Yeah, Brian, how was your New Year's?
New Year's was good. Spent it with some family and friends. But excited for the first Cut the Nets episode of 2023. So happy New Year and excited to talk some hoops.
Absolutely. Let's talk some hoops. The first thing we're going to probably talk about. So the Nets, my favorite team, and Brian, maybe like your like little brother team because you like the Knicks.
Yeah.
The Brooklyn Nets have a 12-game winning streak. That's crazy. They were like 15-12 in the middle of the pack in the Eastern Conference standings, and now they're one game behind the Celtics in the second seed. It's crazy. Like it's absolutely insane. I never thought that with Kyrie's off the court antics with anti-Semitism, and then Ben Simmons joining the fold, and him not really starting off well, and KD, who's sometimes injury prone, having to carry the team. But the Nets have had some pretty decent support from their bench as well. In order to actually have a pretty like substantial team and consistent, you got to have a pretty good bench as well, especially when your star players aren't on the court as much. So I gotta say, this Brooklyn Nets team, I mean, they took care of business against the Spurs this past game too. Like they the first quarter, you kind of knew that like the Nets were gonna pretty much mount the floor with the Spurs in their home court.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean their win streak. It's impressive. Just looking at the teams, they beat the Charlotte Hornets, Atlanta Hawks, the Pacers without their 8 best players, which is an impressive win. But going back to your strong bench point, Washington Wizards, Toronto Raptors, Detroit Pistons, Golden State Warriors, Milwaukee Bucks, Cleveland Cavaliers, Atlanta Hawks, which I think was the Kyrie buzzer beater game, Charlotte Hornets, and then the San Antonio Spurs. So that's an impressive 12-game win streak. Tonight they're against the Chicago Bulls, which the Nets still should win, but the Bulls are a good team, so I wouldn't undermine them necessarily. But looking at their schedule, the next 5 games are the Bulls, Pelicans, Heat, Celtics, Thunder. Jeremy, do you see the Nets winning streak end during that 5-game skid? Into who?
Uh, there is a chance their 5 game skid may end with the Celtics. Realistically, I mean they do play the Bulls, which of course the Bulls aren't really having a great season. It's pretty mediocre. The Pelicans may have a chance, but Zion's out. He's being out for he's gonna be out for 3 weeks with a hamstring injury. You've got the Heat, which I mean they're always that team, where they start off really mediocre in the beginning of the season, and then they somehow just hit their stride come All-Star break. That's kind of how Miami's been over the last 3 years under Spoelstra with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo and with new additions as with Kyle Lowry that was signed last season and stuff. So yeah, I mean that could also be a game that might be that might end that might end the Nets win streak. Pardon, but if the Celtics get through the Nets, sorry, that's not the Celtics. If the Nets get through the Heat and the Celtics, then their win streak is going to be around 17, which is or 16, which is pretty. It's pretty possible. I would say it's definitely possible. But if they get through that, then they're pretty much going to the next 4 teams pretty easily. I mean, they play the Thunder, they play the Spurs, play the Suns, and the Jazz for the next 4 games out of that. Their schedule isn't that hard. I mean, they haven't been playing, to be fair, they haven't been playing, besides the Celtics and the Bulls, they haven't been playing like contending teams. I mean, the whole 12-game win streak was against the Raptors, like you said, the Pistons and the Pacers and the Wizards. And it's really it really says something about their team if they win against the Celtics or maybe the Bucks. I mean, they did play the Celtics and win, but this probably will be a testament probably in the next 3 weeks or maybe a week whenever they play the Celtics on the 12th of January. So we'll see. My bet is their win streak's going to end against. Let's go with the Heat. I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, I can respect that pick with the Heat. They're a good team. Especially it's in Miami too, so that could be a test for Brooklyn. But I think they could get past the Heat. Definitely a respectable one. I think they lose it to the Celtics. They played each other earlier at Brooklyn, December 4th, lost by 11. And this game is also at Brooklyn, but I think that's when I think the Celtics beat. That's because the Celtics have pretty much had Brooklyn's number for a while now. I mean, swept them in the playoffs last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't know if the Nets can get past the Celtics, and I think that's when the win streak ends because you're not going to win every game this season, and win streak's bound to lose at some point, and I think it's going to be against their biggest test in the Boston Celtics.
I'm saying the Heat mostly because you got players who like to rest a lot. And so especially with, the culture of the NBA right now these days, you got a lot of players who rest games that aren't very important. So I don't think that they're going to keep on playing their star players every single game with this win streak. I think they're going to put them on the court for games that are either pretty easy wins or teams that they need to. They are the teams that essentially are going to be playoff opponents later on. Like when I see the Bulls, I don't think they're going to be playoff contenders unless they have Lonzo back. However, the Bulls did put up a fight against the Cavaliers the other game that we'll talk about later on. The Pelicans, I mean, again, they don't have Zion or Ingram right now. And the Pelicans are doing pretty well still as well. They're the second seed, I think, the Pelicans against the Grizzlies. I want to say, is that correct? Pelicans are the
3 seed.
For the third, the 3 seed. Yeah, so they've been kind of fluctuating around the top 3 seeds. And with Zion out, that's going to be interesting for the Pelicans because Zion's been pretty much, their offensive slasher, and with him out and Ingram out, it's going to be interesting to see what McCollum does with the bench players that's going to receive more minutes.
Yeah,
Brian, let's talk about the Celtics coming back down to earth. So, what's your sort of analysis on that? Like, they were the number 1 team in the NBA, and now they're sort of still the first seed, but they're kind of hovering over maybe a couple games ahead of teams that have kind of hit their stride a bit.
Yeah, I think they're kind of just starting to cool down. I mean, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, although they're definitely one of the best or better duos in the league, but Jaylen Brown was having a stretch where he was like consistently getting 40 points. He's kind of cooled down now, getting around like the mid-20s. And another thing is their defense hasn't been best as of late. They let up 150 points to the Thunder of all teams yesterday without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They let up 123 points to the Denver Nuggets. So the Celtics are still a great team, the 1 seed in the East, but they're kind of starting to get figured out. Their defense hasn't been too good as of late, and when they're living by scoring, sometimes shots aren't falling. You're going to get figured out, and that's why they're kind of coming down to earth.
Yeah, the one thing that you need to maintain, especially during these hard times when the shots aren't falling, is defense. That's the one thing that's going to be consistent. Of course, the shots aren't going to fall for a period of games, especially towards the middle half of the season. Players get tired, athleticism kind of goes down, injuries happen, things of that nature. And you got your offense definitely does decrease because of that reason, and also more losses come in if you kind of rely on that offense. If you keep on relying on defense, defense is more of the consistent factor. It's more of the consistent anchor that they have. That I'm looking at the scores right now of the Celtics and Thunder, and the Thunder had 7 players with at least double figures, and 6 of them were more than 15 points. And the only players that had more than 20 points was Tatum and Brown. So they showed up for sure. But Brogdon did all right. But everybody else, Al Horford had 2 points in 22 minutes. Smart. I mean, I guess his defense is good, but again, not that game. They had 7
Yeah, and
points,
Derek
8
White
assists.
and Grant Williams are usually more involved in the offense. They didn't do too well.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you think they might be able to pull out of this and get back to to their winning ways and sort of run away with the East?
I honestly, I don't could say they'll run away. Like this is gonna be a dogfight either way for the East. It's all. I mean, the 1 through 5 seed in the East are currently 3 games apart. I think the Celtics will figure it out and play better basketball, but I still wouldn't give them the guaranteed 1 seed in the East yet. I mean, just wait till the Bucks get Middleton back. Drew Holiday's finally back. They're going to start playing better basketball. Not saying Donovan Mitchell's going to score 71 points every night, but if he's balling, the Cavaliers are a team to watch. I'm big on the Cavaliers' big 3 with Mitchell, Mobley, and Jared Allen. And the Nets, I mean, they're playing championship-winning basketball among this win streak right now. Because, yeah, you mentioned earlier they're not some of the wins in their win streak weren't against the best competition, but they're doing everything a championship team's supposed to be doing. They're beating the bad teams. They're winning convincingly. Ben Simmons figured it out, and he's been valuable to the Nets. They don't have that baggage anymore, really. That
Nash.
was
Yeah.
that was holding them back. So they don't have that
Yeah.
baggage anymore. And Kyrie's staying out of the media, which is the best thing for Brooklyn Net fans. So to answer your question, though, overall, I think the Celtics will figure it out and get back to their winning ways, but I wouldn't necessarily bet Celtics winning the East.
You don't think they're going to win the East, huh? Interesting, because like they made the finals last season, and of course, like the first half, I think that's not the first half, more like the first quarter of this season, they were running away with the NBA. They had like a 21-6 record. They were like 5 games ahead of all the other teams that were from 2nd to 8th seed, and it seemed like the Celtics were out for blood for sure. But now it seems like their offense isn't as strong as it was before, and it's kind of suffered because of that, because they've been giving out a lot of points and they've been kind of still relying on that offense.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be interesting to see. I mean, I think like Boston probably still is going to win the East, especially because I think their biggest competition is Brooklyn, who Boston does fairly well against. But it's going to be closer than I think people think, unless Boston can really like find back their winning ways like they did earlier on in the season.
Yeah, they're also without Robert Williams too, so I guess that also has a case.
Yeah, he's one of their defensive anchors.
Sure, he was out for that game, but I think maybe was he out for the game for the rest, because he's not out. He played the previous game against the Nuggets, but speaking of Mitchell, let's talk about Kyrie Irving's interview about Donovan Mitchell's 71 points. So, did you watch the interview?
No, I didn't.
So the interview basically was talking about, of course, Kyrie talking about how his team is coming together, they're meshing well, they're on the 12-game win streak, they just completely destroyed the Spurs. But then like an interviewer asked Kyrie, "Hey, what did you think of Mitchell's 71-point game against the Cavs?" He goes, "Oh man, like I was playing Call of Duty with him earlier that day, and I could just tell he was locked in. We were playing squads, and so they play Warzone 2 together, which is actually kind of funny. I guess because like I've noticed a lot of basketball players play out of Warzone. It involves a lot of like quick movements and like quick reactions to everything. And I guess they're pretty well adept in that because, of course, they use their whole body to play basketball. But it's really interesting to see how like their personal life and how that's kind of like very relatable in that sense to where he kind of tell he was locked in, and then it showed the next game. But
Yeah, and I could be wrong, but didn't that Donovan Mitchell 71-point game, didn't that break Kyrie's like franchise record of like, or the Cavs franchise record that was Kyrie for scoring most points or something like that?
yeah, yeah, it did. Mitchell broke the record for the highest scoring points for a Cavalier in a game. Holds the record for 71 points. The thing is that I got a question about Mitchell's 71 points and Booker's 70 points that he dropped. What was it, 4 years ago against the Celtics? So, what do you think is better? Booker scoring 70 points in a loss that didn't go to overtime, or Mitchell 71 points in a win that went to overtime?
I mean, I think if you're looking at like the stat lines, or like looking at it, obviously you'd have to say Mitchell's was the better one, because at the end of the day, he got the win. Your individual stats are nice and impressive, but overall, it's a team. Basketball is a team sport, and wins are the ones that help you get closer to a championship. So, I definitely say Mitchell's was better, just because at the end of the day he won. But they're both. Anytime you score 70 points in the NBA, that's very impressive. So I'd say Mitchell's and Booker's were both impressive, but you also have to look at the levels of competition within that. When Mitchell scored 71 points, it was against the Bulls. Not really too great, especially without Lonzo.
Well, the Bulls
And
were
the
up by
Cavaliers are just
20 points at least throughout most of the game until the fourth quarter.
yeah, and the Cavaliers are just like a great team. Devin Booker, when he did it, was against the Celtics, a much better team. Um, but I don't know how like his other like Devin Booker's other stats were in the game, but Mitchell also had a near triple double, 2 rebounds away plus a
Let's
block.
see.
So
Let
he
me
was
check those stats.
seems
I know
like
it's
he was
been
making
like
more of an impact around the ball too. Not saying that Booker doesn't or didn't, but
I'm trying to figure out
both are
what the stats are
phenomenal
at.
players anyway. So
So his stats, he shot 21 of 40 from the field, so it was a less field goal percentage than Mitchell. I think Mitchell shot like 22 of 34.
mm-hmm.
Um, he also had 24 from 26 from the line. But I always look at the minutes. I always see like, okay, how many minutes did he play compared to his scoring? I'm trying to figure out where exactly he had where those minutes were. Full team stats. Let me see here. I mean, it kind of seemed like Booker was pretty much playing 1v5 the entire game.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't really dish out many assists. It was mostly just a the Devin Booker show because he pretty much a spot up shot like from the elbow and then from three. Mitchell was doing that as well, but he also involved his fellow players. Like he involved a lot of plays with Jared Allen, a lot of plays with Mobley. Like he had a lot of like feed through into the and inside of the basket and with a dunk on Jared Allen. He had a lot of alley oops with Allen as well. So there were a lot more of a team facilitative effort for Mitchell in that sense, while also scoring 71 points, which is pretty spectacular. And they got the win too. It's just in overtime, you kind of wonder like if the Cavs lost and Mitchell scored, I think Mitchell he scored 13 points in overtime. If he would have had 58 points if the Cavs lost. Well, that would still be that wouldn't still be like a historical moment. I think that would pass what was I'm not sure like what was like the highest scoring Cavs player besides Mitchell. It was Kyrie Irving, right?
Yeah, it was Kyrie. Yeah, I mean, just like looking at the stats from both of them from that game. So they both had the same amount of rebounds. They both had 8 rebounds, but Mitchell had a little more assist. They both had a block, but Booker did have 5 steals in that game to Mitchell's 0. But then also another thing is like when you're ball dominating, getting up to your 71 points. I mean, Mitchell took like 34 shots, I believe, and Booker
Mhm.
took 40 something.
Took 40.
It's also going to come with turnovers. So Devin Booker had 5, Mitchell had 4. So that's like another thing too is like with how much like what's going on with your
Yeah.
control of the ball. So it's definitely interesting. I mean, both great games. Unfortunately, one um, lost, but I mean, another thing that's impressive too to note was that Sun Celtics game that was without Chris Paul, so it made sense that Devin Booker kind of had to dominate. Because I mean, take a look at the starting lineup. It's Tyler Eulis, who I don't even know if he's still in the league.
Euless.
Devin Devin Booker, Alex Len, Derek Jones Jr., and Marquise Chris. And outside of Booker, the starting lineup had 24 points, and then they only went with an 8-man rotation of Jared Dudley, Leandro Barbosa, and then Alan Williams. So like it made sense that Booker kind of had a backpack his team when although
Yeah.
Mitchell had help from other people, still had an impressive game himself.
Yeah. Which I mean, it would have been more disappointing if, like I said, if Mitchell didn't, if the teams didn't go into overtime and the Bulls like won by 1 point or something, and those 13 points by Mitchell are completely voided, right? So he would have had 58 points in the game, or 57 points, 58 points in the game, but yet he still would have passed the record for most points by a Cavs player in franchise history, because LeBron and Kyrie both have 57, which was initially the highest one before Mitchell. So that that game tying moment to tie the game and to send it to overtime really kind of helped Mitchell completely take over the game and win, while also achieving the highest points by Cavalier. So makes you wonder. Makes you wonder.
Yeah, it's definitely
What
interesting.
else we got? So we got your Knicks, right? Knicks and Spurs tonight.
Yeah, Nick Spurs, a rematch after a surprising loss to them on Thursday, December 9th. I mean, that was without Brunson and Barrett. Now we got Brunson back. Especially at the Garden. I'm expecting a win, but as a Knicks fan, dealing with a lot of misery, don't want to get my hopes up. Also, pretty much like I don't know if you've noticed this, but anytime there's a game at the Garden, it's always some player has his career historic game. I mean, Devin Booker has done it a few times. Steph Curry had his career night against the Knicks. Pascal Siakam a couple weeks got a career night. I honestly wouldn't even be surprised if Keldon Johnson has like a career high 53 points on against the Knicks. Like
There's
it's
something magical
depressing.
about MSG right there. There's something magical about it.
Yeah,
Or,
it's a shame. It's everyone loves to play there and go off there, but then no one wants to sign there. It's $1 million question. I don't understand, but
it's like I said, it's like signing with the Yankees. You know, if you sign with the New York Knicks, a New York team, I consider the Brooklyn Nets to not have that sort of caliber. They're just sort of buying players to win championships, and
mhm.
they're just doing the Billy King way, I guess, and they're going to keep on doing it for God knows how long until they finally figure out, hey, draft picks actually work. Let's rebuild and build around players. But the Knicks have this huge, expectation for their players, and just like other sports in New York City, and for some reason it's highly regarded that if you're a Knick, then you have to play great. You can't just play mediocre. Like you got all these New York Knicks fans who are just diehard, and they just, I'm sure you as well have have that sort of passion for the team. So you're like, we have to figure out a way to assemble a good team to get to the playoffs. But again, every season always ends up in disappointment for you guys. Um, so, and it's funny because when every season ends up as a disappointment, the opposing teams, like their star players of the opposing teams, often get career high points, so they just like shine in the bright lights. But why can't Knicks players do it? You know,
Yeah, it's just it's bad. But
it's bad.
yeah,
It's
I
bad.
mean, we should beat the Knicks. We should beat the Spurs. Tonight that game's at 7:30 Eastern. I mean, we are on a nice little 2-game win streak. Beat your Rockets by 20, and then beat the Suns by 19. Devin Booker didn't play in that game though.
Yeah,
One thing I did notice though, which was impressive or interesting, was without Jalen Brunson, those few games, the Knicks team looked lost offensively. Like it was just like back to their same MO before Brunson signed with the Knicks of just Randall bringing up the ball, a lot of turnovers, bad playmaking. Emmanuel quickly doing his little spin in a circle and floater. So getting Brunson back is huge for them offensively, gives them a sense of direction. Um, and you saw that in the game against the Suns. The team looked much more efficient offensively.
yeah. No, I mean, it's kind of a nightmare when you see Julius Randle pull up the ball up at the top of the key. I don't think that's really his role in that team. So with
No,
Brunson back, it's definitely for sure more facilitation, more shots at the elbow, open shots, more spacing, definitely. So there is definitely an advantage for the Knicks to win this game. I mean, you got a lot of bets right here. I'm looking at these bets, and the Spurs are plus 9.5 against the spread. And the money line Spurs are plus 325. So the Knicks are definitely for sure expected to win by betting odds. But where do you see the Knicks like in the next 5 to 10 games? You see them hovering over the 8th seed because that's sort of like a playing seed now, and like the main goal for teams that are like lower seeded need to get to be the 6th seed. So do you expect them to get better or sort of like get better, like one step forward, 2 steps back, or
yeah. So we're currently right now 2 games over 500 at the 8th seed. Technically tied with the Heat 6 games back. I mean, our next 5 games are the Spurs. That should be a win. Raptors. That's probably gonna be a loss. Bucks. That's gonna be a loss. Pacers win. Wizards win. I'd say so. Pretty much. I think 3-2 in the next 5. But I just think that like that's kind of our ceiling anywhere from the 7th seed to the 10th seed. So I think we're gonna be in a playoff game. We're gonna be in the playoffs around that play, and I don't really unless something drastic happens, like season-ending injury or huge trade. That's where I think he is.
knock on wood. It, yeah. The Knicks. It's interesting how they are still kind of hovering over that tone line of like sort of slightly better than mediocrity, and then they sort of get back down to mediocrity, and then they sort of like go up. It's a roller coaster. That they're a very streaky team, I'll say.
Mhm.
Speaking of not streaky teams, we've got LeBron pretty much pulling a 2013 Kobe Bryant with the Lakers over the last couple of games. He's not playing this next game because he's out with an illness, which is kind of beyond me. Like, okay, he's out with an illness, but he's been carrying the entire Lakers squad without Anthony Davis. I mean, what else is new? Davis has a crazy injury after doing so well in the first quarter of the season. He was supposed to be out for like a month, but now it's like more than that. Now it's indefinite. So LeBron's pretty much carrying the entire team. It's crazy at 38 years old that he's still able to do this. It's just nuts. I mean, I kind of don't you kind of feel like LeBron will just like whenever he retires, there's going to be like I don't know a lot of accusations of TRT or HGH that he takes or something that wasn't disclosed during his NBA season.
Yeah, I mean that's probably I think that'd be up for discussion, especially considering the way the NBA game the NBA works now. I mean, I don't know if you saw, but Donovan Mitchell already got asked for a drug test
Yeah,
after a 71
yeah.
point game, and like that's even happened with the NFL too. Like players have amazing games, it's like a drug test. So I think like there could be suspicion for LeBron because he's 38 years old and there's no sign of him slowing down in his game. So that's a little interesting. I do remember seeing though that like he is serious about like his health and like physique and diet. And I know that he spends because I saw an article like a year or two ago that he spends about $1 million a year just on trainers and like diet and like people with help with his diet. So it's definitely working. I mean, the man at 38 years old is in better shape than most people in their prime. So
No, yeah,
uh,
he's probably like the best 38-year-old player in the NBA. I mean,
no, definitely.
when I think of like players who are that age, who were all-time great players, I think of just Kareem. Really, that's it. And in Kareem, he really didn't show much athleticism. It was all about finesse, with the sky hook, and of course he was helped by Magic and the what's his name, the other teammate for the '80s Lakers, Showtime Lakers.
Magic Johnson.
No, yeah, Magic, and then Kareem, and then somebody. Oh, James Worthy. So
Oh yeah.
you had those players pretty much helping out LeBron, who were already like definitive all stars, superstar players. And LeBron's just doing this by himself. Like he's not doing what Jordan did back on the Wizards. I mean, Jordan was 38 years old when he went back to the NBA after retiring a second time. And he was only scoring 20 to 25 points per game. He was scoring on like below 40% efficiency. And LeBron, he's back up to 50% efficiency. Like he started off slow this season, averaging 20, 25 points a game. Now he's back up to averaging 28 points per game and now averaging a 50% from the field. That's crazy. We thought this would be like sort of like the decline of his offensive prowess, but he's got no help. So he's pretty much, again, it's a 1-5 game, or 1v5 game with LeBron against any other team. You got Westbrook doing the bench, but again, the Lakers, they're just, I guess I want to say they're waiting because they see that LeBron has still enough energy in the tank to play 3 or 4 more seasons, with maybe 1 or 2 more seasons at this level of performance. So I'll say once the Westbrook contract expires, I think that they'll be like I said before, like a contending team for sure in the next season or two. So like right now, what are the Lakers? They're like bottom.
They're 13th in the Western Conference,
13th in the
16-21.
Western Conference. Yeah, like that's pitiful. It's like Charles Barkley was talking about it like a month and a half ago, how this is a conspiracy.
Yeah.
I was like, we can't talk about the Lakers. Why are we talking about the Lakers? This is a conspiracy. Like they're a 13th seed. Like we ain't talking about the Washington Wizards. We're a 13th seed. But yeah, it's I mean, it's spectacular, but it's all a show. And there's no winning, there's no W's that result in his 40-point games. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. But
yeah, go ahead.
We talked about my New York Knicks. Let's talk about your Houston Rockets now. I mean, you got the New Orleans Pelicans tonight at New Orleans without Zion. How you feeling about tonight's game?
I really want to say that it's going to be a close game. I want to believe that, but I just can't. I just can't. I really can't. I thought they had some improvements in the beginning of the season, but if you look at like last year's record compared to this year's record, it is virtually the same. I saw a tweet from one of the main beat writers for Houston, and he was doing a recap of like their offensive ranking and defensive ranking. It is 25 or worse, 25th or worse in both offense and defense. They're around the same. Nothing really has changed in terms of winning and rebuilding improvements. Like I saw this interview. I mean, I don't know if I should show it to you. But man, this was such this. Can we do audio here? Is it possible?
I think so.
I want to say this. Let me search this real quick. I'm gonna search it. We're gonna watch an interview of Steven Silas asked about the current rebuild situation, and I want you to see his body language. So Eric Gordon, he was interviewed by after the Knicks loss. Your Knicks beat my Rockets by 20 points. Thank you, appreciate it.
At least for once, New York gets over Houston.
I mean, yeah, we don't have James Harden. We don't have James Harden scoring 60 points in a triple double. So, we don't have that anymore. Actually, James Harden might be coming back to Houston. There's a lot of rumors about that.
I saw that.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea on paper, but it might ruffle some feathers in the player development. But I mean, again, it'll make Houston a lot better. Harden will be a facilitator. Jalen Green will get more points. Jabari Smith will be a completely different player in all the best ways. I mean, but I don't really see that a huge improvement. I don't see like top 5. I see like 8th seed at the best for if Harden came back. But
yeah, I mean that's still a huge sense of improvement for them, though.
I would say so, but again, like signing Harden back to the Rockets, what's he doing? If he doesn't do well with the 76ers, like what's he trying to do? Is he just giving up on getting a ring?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, I don't. I mean, do the Rockets have a lot of cap space? Like, hypothetically, they get Harden. Do they have enough to improve other ways to like bring in other people?
If they bring in Harden will definitely want a bigger contract. They have enough players, especially with Gordon's contract expiring next offseason. They have enough cap space to sign maybe two pretty decent all-stars.
Well, I know you're a big Eric Gordon guy, so you want him back, but
that's funny. That's funny. That's really funny. Yeah, good joke right there. I totally just. Oh, man. Don't ever say that ever again. Like, don't ever mention that ever again. I'm kidding. But while we're talking about Harden, I want to like I said, I want to show you this video here. See if I can present it. Share screen. Can I do this entire screen? Yeah, here we go. So, oh wait, whoa. Can you see that?
Yeah, I see. Like now, I see it.
There we go. Sweet. So, Eric Gordon said that there's no improvement at all in the rebuilding system this season compared to last season. He looked pretty frustrated, like extremely upset about how the Rockets are doing this season, and rightfully so, in that they have the same record as they did last year at this point. I want you to see Steven Silas's face when he responds to that question that when someone brought up to him about how Eric Gordon's feeling.
I can't hear it.
You can't hear it?
No.
You can't hear it? Shoot. I guess damn, I guess we can't do that. Well, anyways, I guess we'll cut that out. Anyways, basically, if you saw his like facial reactions, he's kind of smiling, right? Yeah. So he's smiling. He's kind of just like rebuilding is hard. Like I don't know, like you guys don't understand. Rebuilding is hard. Like he kind of seems a little nervous, and like he has this weird, just like fake smile, and it just kind of makes me upset. Like it doesn't seem like he's taking this seriously. Like this is like the assistant coach John Lucas is taking it way more seriously than Steven Silas. John Lucas is 2-0. It's a small sample size, but he's 2-0 when Silas doesn't coach. Yeah, he may be a little bit older and also more, but he's got more experience. I don't understand these lineups that Silas puts out for the second unit, for the starting lineup, because Eric Gordon is still playing at the 3. Şengün is like benched after getting double teamed constantly against the Knicks. I don't get it. If you want to go through a rebuild, fine. But this is the 3rd year that they're going through a rebuild. They have to at least do better than the previous season. And at 10-27, there's if you're in the same spot as you were last season, clearly there's no improvement. Like they show some signs of improvement whenever it comes to maybe getting out to a hot start, but then it cools down, and then their defense starts to fade, and their turnovers go up. They're still 30th in turnovers, made, and it just doesn't seem like there's any sort of offensive flow. When Silas wasn't coaching much during the preseason, and John Lucas was coaching for the most preseason games, there was a lot of ball movement. I know preseason games don't really matter much, but the Rockets were like 3-1 in the preseason. There was a hell of a lot of ball movement. You had Tari Eason cutting to the baskets. You had Jabari Smith shooting threes. You had they were open. They were stretched threes that were open due to a pick or due to an off screen. Like, it was just a very cohesive offense for a young team, and I wasn't expecting much like a playoff or a 30-game winning team because of that. But maybe in the 20-25 range or 25-30 win team range because of that preseason performance. Like, it's just back to formula. It's just back to square one again. It doesn't seem like the Rockets are frantic. It doesn't seem that there's like a sense of urgency for the team to make moves. Please trade Eric Gordon. Put him on a contender. Trade for cash for all I care. Or draft picks. Honestly, like,
it just seems like seems like there's no sense of direction going. They definitely got to do something to change the direction, whether it's firing of their coach, GM, or just a trade. Like, they got to do something. Otherwise, they're just gonna keep going back to square one.
Yeah, honestly, if I were a GM of the Rockets, I would probably wait another month to see if the Rockets improve with winning games. But if you see like certain plays with Jabari Smith, there's a lot of plays where he's sort of waiting for the ball and he's open at the wing, and like the Rockets are only playing on one half side of the field or the court. Like, they're giving the ball. I think KPJ pulls up to the top of the key, gives it to Jalen, and then they pass it to Alpi, and then they screen again because they can't find somebody open to the basket. They give it back to Jalen. Jalen's, he's dribbling, like, crossover in the at the top of the key again, and then Jabari on the right side just like, hello, I'm open, and there's nobody there. Like, Jabari's defender is in the paint, waiting for Alpi to cut to the basket. So, yeah, in a sense, it's just frustrating. But I'm sure that this is what you guys dealt with for like the last decade or 20 years with the Knicks. So, I mean, it's much worse.
Yeah,
I'm just spoiled. We had James Harden for years, so we just expected, to be in the playoffs every season. So,
yeah, fair enough.
I think the last segment we'll kind of go over is the Warriors and Grizzlies game, the double OT game that they like the thrill ride that they had over at Chase Center at Golden State. We had Klay Thompson scoring 54 points, which was crazy. He was like 10 for 21 from the field, which is like vintage Klay or Game 6 Klay. This was without Stephen Curry. Curry still has was it a shoulder issue? I think so.
Yeah.
I want to say, yeah, he's a shoulder issue. He's still not playing, and Now, based on the age of the Warriors, where they're trying to prioritize their young players more because, of course, Draymond and Clay are no longer the same as they used to be. Um, they're still kind of they're like treading above water right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's see here. They play the Pistons tonight as well, so I mean, I guess this might be another chalk up to a win.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah. Why do you think the Warriors have completely just fallen from their finals run last season?
I honestly I think it's a bunch of reasons. One, the biggest reason, your facilitator, one of the greatest scorers of all time, Steph Curry. He's been hurt, dealing with injuries. Klay Thompson, I don't know if it's rust or age getting to him or his body just slowing down, but I mean now he's picked it up. I mean, overtime, January 2nd, 54-point victory over the Hawks. But so now he's picking up. But and also another thing too, Jeremy, is their bench. They've lost a lot of guys. I mean, Gary Payton left in free agency. Um, they lost a lot of guys, and the only person they really brought in was Dante DiVincenzo. I mean, I like DiVincenzo. He's a good
Yeah.
bench player, but when you're gonna lose a lot of people from your championship team, from your bench unit that like is supposed to help pick up the or carry the load when your starters come out, and you're not really getting that anymore, it's eventually gonna just fail when you're going up against great competition. You don't have that strong bench unit, and your starters are banged up.
Yeah, that's true. Also, James Wiseman's still not in the picture. He's in the G League, and he's like the second overall pick in the 2020 draft or 2021 draft. So, that's a second overall pick. That's somebody who should be healthy and should be NBA ready.
And should be impactful to your franchise.
Yeah, exactly. He should be the one that the core three is passing the torch to. So, what I'm kind of a little upset about with the Warriors GM is it Bob Myers? Let's say
It sounds right. Yes.
Yeah, he it sounds right. Fuck, we suck. It sounds right. What I'm kind of like upset about the Warriors with their signings is that it's Bob Myers. Okay, I was like second guessing myself. Is that they signed Jordan Poole to a long-term deal after this playoffs. And I don't really think Jordan Poole is as good as the team thinks he is. Like he's a very streaky player. He's kind of reminds me of Jordan Clarkson for a bit when it comes to scoring, because there are times where he's just knocking shot after shot, especially from behind the arc. Then in like other games, he's just a non-factor. He's nowhere to be found. So and in one of these games, yeah, he scored 28 points. But I mean, his stats are pretty mediocre when it comes to field goal percentage, and it feels like he just kind of shoots he's like a volume shooter, but like overly volume shooter.
Yeah, and I mean, I think as far as back to why they gave him the extension was back to a point I made and back to a point you made of like that they really just cannot afford to lose him because they've already lost so much of their bench and like the depth, and also Poole is supposed to be their guy, like the passing of the torch, because Clay, Curry, even Draymond, they can't play forever. And outside that big three, their best player is either Andrew Wiggins or Poole. And who knows what Wiggins' future holds in Golden State? It's Jordan Poole, a young homegrown guy that they drafted and developed. So they really just can't afford to lose him, especially when you have your big three older and your championship window closing. So I think that's why they gave him that contract. And also, you're right, he is inconsistent, and you even saw that a little bit in the finals. Teams start to figure him out, and it's tough when he's playing with Steph Curry, and they're kind of similar players in the sense of like obviously Poole doesn't have Steph's range or consistency, but when they have that same type of volume shooters like pick and pop, it's kind of a similar play style that teams can kind of figure out and counter.
Yeah, of course. Also, yeah, Draymond, who's not as great as a facilitator as he used to be. He's not as athletic. Of course, they kind of squirm when he starts shooting threes like a backpack on his back again. However, he did make that three against the game in the game against the Hawks. So it's funny, whenever Draymond makes a three, he made a three in overtime. Whenever he makes a three, the Warriors have a better chance of winning. It's actually really funny. Like, and it's I think there's like a video on like YouTube or something where like somebody analyzed a huge deep history of Draymond's threes and like the huge impact it has on every single game, regular season or playoff game. And of course, he shot more threes whenever he was, back in like 2015, 2016. But now he's more resorted to just a wall and a facilitator. But I also think. Do you think Wiggins is also a factor, like the X factor for the Warriors too? I want to say that too. Yeah. Because he's been out.
Yeah, he has been out. I mean, I think you have to say he is, or like not like necessarily like the X factor, but like back to like a former episode where we were talking about like the Clippers and like the Pelicans. He's definitely like a Robin to like Curry and Clay. Like he's not necessarily the guy, but he's a huge contributor to the, I mean, even take a look in the finals. It was like in the playoffs, he didn't play the best, but once he got to the finals, he was a main contributor. Everyone was saying like, "Oh, is like they're bringing up the question again of is Wiggins a bust?" And then he stepped up and like helped the Warriors to a championship last year. So I think they're definitely, I think Wiggins is definitely a contributor. And they're missing him and Curry right now for sure, especially because Wiggins offers that size and defense to help Draymond.
Yeah, I do think Wiggins has more defensive talent than his offense. His offense is pretty consistent, but that's as like consistent as a borderline all-star, which is still somebody that's pretty valuable on your team.
Which
I
is
think
what he was. I mean,
yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Didn't he start in the All-Star game last year though?
He started because I think a small forward, I forgot who didn't play, but a small forward like was out with an injury or decided to step down. And Wiggins was like a reserve player, and then he went to an all-star starter. So he was a reserve player initially, but again, for a first overall pick, like that sort of stat line, those accolades, kind of remind me of maybe more of a fifth overall pick or a sixth overall pick type of player. So yeah, I do think he was a little bit overhyped. I mean, people called him like the next, like the Canadian LeBron James back in the day.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I guess it does benefit for him as well. He's a Finals champion now. He's away from the Timberwolves. Debauchery, especially right now. They have no idea what they're doing with Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns. Like, I could definitely see whenever they traded for Gobert, they're like, this is going to be the future of the Timberwolves. We're going to be playoff bound. We're going to be a top 5 seed. No, I just don't think so. Like with Karl Anthony Towns being like the focal point of the team, along with what's his name,
Anthony Edwards.
Anthony Edwards. You had that two sharing of the ball, but then on defense, Cat's not really that great of a defender, and he's kind of like in the way of Gobert's center position when it comes to blocking shots and contesting inside shots and stuff like that. So the Timberwolves are suffering because of that reason too. So it was good to see that Wiggins kind of got out of that, because I mean the Timberwolves haven't been like threatening since the Kevin Garnett days. So
yeah. No, for sure. But actually, real quick, is you brought up a good point about, or a good question about Wiggins and Like with the comparisons to the Canadian LeBron and first pick should be more of a fifth or a sixth pick. I always wondered this because I've heard this debate. Um, so obviously Lonzo Ball was a highly touted pick, second
Yeah.
overall by the Lakers, and because of his dad and the media, there's very high praise for him. And for the second pick, he didn't, I guess, live up to his rookie year. But I thought overall he had a solid rookie year of 10.2 points, 6.9 rebounds, 7.2 assists, 1.7 steals.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know how the rest of his career has played out. But I guess from the hype he had and being a second pick, would you call that a failure of a rookie year? And just like,
I mean, I would call it, yeah, because you've had tons of comparable players who are second overall picks, like KD, like who the hell is a second overall pick player? You have to have at least one All-Star selection if you're a second overall pick.
mm-hmm.
Like you also have Jason Tatum, who's a third overall pick. He's actually going to be the fifth overall pick, but with the Phillies, with the Celtics, they traded up. So you've got all these players who were in the draft class who are much better than Lonzo. You know, Donovan Mitchell, who was like the 13th overall pick, or I think between 10 and 20. I mean, you had all these players that were picked after Lonzo, and Lonzo's hype was basically because of his vertical and his 3-point shot. But then you also have to understand he was playing with LeBron in the second season. So, it also kind of stunted his development as a player. I mean, his best season's probably last year before he got injured, and
Yeah, I
where he
mean, it
actually
was
came
13
to his stride.
points,
Yeah,
which was second in career high points. His last year with the Pelicans in 2020 had 14.6, but he shot the ball way better.
yeah,
42% from the field, 42% from three, while being the defensive anchor and third scoring option to DeRozan and Levine.
that's a great spot for him. That's probably the best case of position for Lonzo. Like, if any GM saw that and predicted, okay, this is what Lonzo is going to do, perfect. Of course, he had to work on his shot. He had a weird shot form in his first year, so obviously his field goal percentage went down because of that reason. Also, his ZO2s. There are a lot of accusations with the fact that he wore his big baller brand shoes, and like he had to change his shoes every quarter because the shoes were poorly made, and that must have like messed up his vertical and his ankles also and his knees. So like, but whenever he wore the Kobe's, because whenever he wore Kobe's, he played better. He also wasn't as injured. But of course, his dad and wants him to market the BBB brand and all that stuff. So I think the hype and the pressure from his father and the media wanting his father to just say all these outlandish things that's never going to happen. That could have happened, but the way they marketed it would kind of put a wrench in his future. That pretty much kind of wasted Lonzo's first 6 to 7 years of his career. So yeah, I do think he's a bust at the number 2 overall pick. I mean, he still can, of course, he can still redeem himself and become a very significant player on a team, but I don't really see like MVP or Jason Kidd levels of offense. I just don't see that. I see maybe Jason Kidd light, or best case scenario, maybe one All-Star appearance in his career.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, and like realistically, he's the number 2 or 3 on a championship team, and
Yeah,
that could be perfectly fine for him. Though, like Chicago is a great spot for him.
I would say so, as long as he's healthy. But his knee issues are still a thing, so he still can't even like walk. It's hard. He can't even walk or like jump properly.
Jeez,
because of the fact that he like injured his knee again last season, and it's still an ongoing issue with that. So, but yeah, I think that's it for everything we talked about as far as NBA games and NBA news this weekend. I think we can definitely talk about trade speculations next week because the trade deadline's in a month. We definitely do that because there's been no trade rumors at all, really, besides James Harden going to the Rockets. Is Fournier still a Nick? Not really much
He is
anything
still a
there
Nick.
yet. He's still a Nick. So I mean,
He's actually been playing more too.
he has.
Yeah, with a part of Brunson not playing.
Okay, so they have to give him minutes to Fournier.
Yeah, and like the shocking part too was I thought he was going to be when he was not playing because it was like 6 weeks he didn't play or something. I thought he was going to be like this disgruntled veteran, like going to be mad, like if you're not going to play me, trade me. But he got his opportunity. He was like ecstatic that he was given the opportunity. He actually played well, and like guys like Cam Reddish, who also weren't getting opportunities, were like instead of being jealous, they were happy for him. So it's glad to see
Interesting.
a nice little culture change because this
Okay,
definitely would have happened a couple years ago. So
that's kind of interesting because he's like 28, 29 years old, and he was an everyday player on the Magic, and then he was on the Celtics playing every day, and now he's kind of embracing that opportunity to play and to get some minutes with an injured player on the Knicks. It's an interesting take on that. Like, it's got a different outlook, I guess. But yeah, we'll probably discuss trade options and trade rumors and stuff like that next week. I think that's it for episode 3. We're just gonna talk about big ass news. That's the that's the title of this episode. Big ass NBA news. That's it. Big ass NBA news because it's kind of what we went through with all this these crazy point totals and like players putting the team on their backs and winning the games with like crazy performances and but yeah, and also the Rockets suck. But yeah, that's just that's normal these days.
yeah,
But yeah, that's pretty much it for episode. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening and or watching. If you liked our previous episodes, check them out. And yeah, subscribe if you'd like to. So we'll also be posting clips on TikTok and Twitter. I'll get onto that and not be a lazy bum and start posting clips of our podcast on that. Other than that, this is Cut the Nets, episode 3. Thank you for watching.
thank you.